ආයුක්තියට එරෙහි කළු සෙවණැල්ල මේ නගරයේ යුක්තියේ මුරකරු රාත්‍රියේ අඳුරු දඩයම් කරු
බයිලා ගන්න තුගේ බයියකෝ
මම උඹලා වගේ හොරුන්ගේ නරකම හීනේ I am Batman
කකුල දලිස පන්නද මන්ද අයියෝ
ඉතින් ගොනා උඹට අරිතුලකින් බිමල පණ ගන්න බෑ කොහොමද පොරොට්ටෝ යුක්තියේ මුරකරු
කනවා ගන්නවා ඉතින් මිනිහෙක් වැටුණා hina වෙන්නේ කකුලද මන්ද කකුලේ ඉන්නේ තමුද දැක්කේ නැද්ද මම මේ ජොබ් එකට අලුත් ඕයි අනික මේ ගොනා කියගෙන ඉන්න බාරිය
ගුණා නෙමෙයි නං තමුතු මොකද ඇඳගෙන ඉන්නේ
මම බැට්මෑන් නයිසේ
බැට්මෑන් එහෙනම් මොකද්ද ඔය අන්තකක් තියෙන්නේ
අන් දෙක නෙමෙයි අයිසේ ඒ වගේ කන් දෙක නෙමෙයි ඔයි අන් දෙක
තමා බැට්මෑන් නෙමෙයි දාගනින් හරක්මයන් කියලා ගොන්නා
ඉතින් මම ඒක තමයි කිව්වා ගොනා කියගෙන ඉපා
ගොනා
ආයෙත් අවසර කියන්නේ
ගොනා
කතා කරා ඇති මම තමසට එක chance එකක් දෙනවා ඔය හොරකම් කරපු බඩු ටික මට දීලා හොඳ හිතින් ගන්න මම පොලිසියට කියලා තමසව ෂේප් කරලා දාන්න ඔය ටික මට දීලා තමස යනවා
නැත්තේ දන් කොන්කම මෙච්චර මානසික හොරකම් කරපුවා නිකම් උඹ අතර දීලා යන්න පුළුවන් නම් ඒක කනින්
මේ බඩා පොඩ එක chance එකක් දුන්නා දැන් ඔබ මට කියන්න එපා මම ඔබට නොකියුවයි කියලා
මල්ලි කලබල වෙන්න එපා මල්ලි කලබල වෙන්න එපා වවුලෙක් වගේ ඇඳන් හිටියට මත් මිනිස්සෙක් අපි වීරු කරනවා ඒකට පොඩ්ඩක් hina වෙලා ඉන්න තියෙන්නේ ඔයා මං කවුද කියලා දන්නේ නැහැ මල්ලි මම ඔයාට එක chance එකක් දුන්නා ඔයා මං කවුද කියලා දන්නේ නැහැ
මම වෙන්න උඹට මම කවුද කියලා
මං කිව්වේ ගොන්නෙක්ම තමා උඹ නම් බැට්මෑන්ට ගෙදර ඉඳන් උදව් කරන වයසක ඩයිල් එකක් ඉන්නව නේද බිල්
ඔන්න ඔය පොලිසියට කියනවා ඉතින් මාත් මේ සීන් එකට අලුත් කියලා අංකල් මගුලක් කතා කරනවා මම දැන් මුත් එක්ක ගහගන්නේ අතින් පයින්ද එන්න කලින් බඩු ටික ලෑස්ති කරලා දෙන්න බෑ පුතා සෝරි
මේ කොම්පැටියා මට උඹත් එක්ක තොතන ඉන්න වෙලාවක් නෑ උඹට බඩු ටික ඕනි කිව්වේ වරෙන් උඹට බඩු ටික දෙන්න
කවුද මන්නේ මෙතනින් මැරෙන්නේ කියන්නේ අතින් පයින් හරි ගහනවා
යවද
පොඩකිනේ
අංකල් මූ මං වගේ තුමුණක් විතර උසයි මගේ ආයුධ ටිකක් නැහැ මං තනියම ගන්න බෑ උඩ මට උදව්වට කවුරු හරි වන්න කොහේ මාළේ කාඩේ හදිසි කතා කරන්නේ කවුරු හරි තව වෑන් කෙනෙක්
අනේ මේ මරණ මේක කොහොමද දෙන්න ඕන වලින්
Hello? Superman Budan?
Speaking.
Hello? Batman Budan?
You won't let me live. You won't let me die. You cannot be over yourself. කඩිනමින් අවදානම්ව පැතිරයන් ලබයි. එබැවින් ඔබ මේ ගෙවමින් සිටින.
තරහ ගන්න බා කලබල වෙන්න බා මල්ලි වැටහැරිලා හිටපු එක ලොකුට මල්ලි අනේ පුළුවන් තරම් ඉක්මනට යන්න පුතා මම ලොකේෂන් එක දාන්න පුළුවන් තරම් ඉක්මනට යන්න ඕනේ අනේ අනංග මාරු බේරගන්න අනේ පොලිසිය ඉන්නවා ඉතිපා මම මොකටද කියවුවා කියලා පොලිසිය කියනවා ඔය කුටි ගන්නවට බය දුවන්නේ දුවපන් අන්න හරි මමට ගහන්න ඉතල දුවපන් अंकल होरा दिवा कोमगे बाइक पे अंदर पाले नवचन तबुदु वाली मिलने की अंदर पहले नो वो उड़ा किने केरुवा තමුට බයිසිකලේ පැදගන්න බෑනේ බයික් එක පැදගන්න බෑනේ මෙන්න මේ රෙද්ද ටයර් දෙක ලිස්සුවා හරි ඔන්න ඔය මගුල කෙලින් කරා කී අරුව අල්ලලා හරියට ඇහෙන්නේ බුරුරු බාරකට යන්නේ මේ ටයර් දෙක ගැසෙනවා අංකල් තාවරු උදව්වට වඩ හරි තමුසේ යනවාකෝ උදව්වට එකෙක්ව එවලා තියෙන්නේ කලින් උද ටයර් දෙකක් දාන්න කියලා මම අංකල්ට කිව්වා දැම්මා ඔය රට ටයර් දෙකක් දාලා තියෙන්නේ ඉතින් ඔය දාපු දෙකේ හැටි තමයි මුගලේ තමයි පරිපුඩි යනවා බ්‍රේක් ගැහුවා අංකල් බ්‍රේක් ගැහුවා මේ මල මගුල් ටයර් එක ලිස්සුවානේ
මොකෙක්ද හැප්පුනේ?
පත ගොනෙක් නේද? අන්දකකුත් තිබුණා.
ඔව් ගොනෙක් තමයි අන්දකකුත් තියෙනවා දැක්ක යන්න ඉක්මනට
මල්ලි
පුතා හොලික් නේද? මල්ලි පුතා දාම ජීවිත කතරේ නේද? කතා කරන්නකෝ.
බලන්න අංකල් මම මේ අල්ලන්න කියලා ආව පළවෙනි හොරා ඌව තල්ලගන්න බැරි වුණා නම් මට මේ බැට්ටන් මේ පළයක් තියනවාද මේ ඔක්කොම මේ අංකල්ගේ රෙද්දේ ටයර් දෙකේ හින්දා කලබල නොවී ඉන්න මග උදව්වට කෙනෙක් එනවා කවුද ඉන්නේ මොකද උනේ මුසලෝද මේ මම ෆ්ලෑෂ් මුසද දුවන්නේ නැද්ද දුවන්න මොකටද දුවන්න කම්මැලි බ්‍රෝ දැන් බයික් එකේ තමයි ගමන බයික් එකේ යන්න කියලා තමයි බ්‍රෝ මටත් මේ කෙලුනේ මේ පේන්නේ නැද්ද ලිස්සනවා පදනවා ගැසෙනවා රැට පේන්නේ නැහැ යට කරන් ගියා දන්නේ නැහැ අයියෝ බැටා ආගන්න මං වගේ බයික් එකට DSI ජෙනෙක් ටයර් දෙකක් සුපිරි කස්ටන් නිසා ගසන් පැත්තේ ලිස්සන්නේ නැහැ නියෝනි ස්ලිප් නිසා රැට රොක් ආරක්ෂාවයි ෆ්ලෑෂ් පදිනවා කියන්නේ ඉතින් ටයර් දෙක ගැන අහන්න දැන් නැහැ ලොක්කා දකිනවා අපි කියලා දැන් මරුව අල්ලගන්න
දෙන ජෙනෙක්ස් පැරය රාත්‍රී කාලයේදී ධාවකයා පහසුවෙන් හඳුනාගත හැකි ඩියෝන් එෆෙක්ට් එක සහිත DSI ජෙනෙක්ස් මෝටර්.
I love Batman. He is probably my favourite comic book hero ever, even more so than any other fictional character I've ever known. Right from the get-go, something that has always intrigued me about Batman is the psychology behind the character. Even when I was a kid, his no-killing rule, the trauma that made him into what he had become, the whole symbolism of taking that element of fear for him and controlling it, it all just felt different to me. Batman isn't the generic, quippy, hopeful superhero. He's different. He's tragic. He has no defining superpowers that separate him from the regular person, and by default that completely separates him from almost every other superhero. That's what intrigues me. The fact that there is nothing special about Bruce Wayne. He wasn't bitten by a radioactive spider, he wasn't sent to Earth in refuge from another planet, he's just a human. A really wealthy human. Jokes aside, the back alley mugging that changed his life forever could have happened to anyone. In fact, just looking at his origins alone, Bruce has the makings of a tragic villain. So after all of this, when he doesn't become the villain, that's what interests me. And the lingering question at the back of my mind is, how? How could you go through all of that and choose to be good? Well, that's exactly it. One of the most compelling themes that I can associate with Batman is choice. Fundamentally, Batman is about choice. He is always forced into moral ultimatums because they serve as a true test of his greatest enemy, his own ideology. He is as much a psychological hero as he is a physical one, and consequently the very best of his stories always break down the philosophy behind the character. All of this is just so interesting for me, but I wanted to learn more. So I read some comics, watched some documentaries, read some books, and my journey to really delve into the psychology of Batman took an amazing impact when I got to the films. So throughout my journey, this is what I learned. Let's look at the Dark Knight trilogy. Each film deconstructs Batman's psychosis differently. It asks the question, what is Batman? The first film approaches him as an object of fear, perfectly matching him against Scarecrow. The second film explores the crime vacuum he's caused, the consequent anarchy and chaos, pitting him against the Joker. And the third film delves into the fallout of Batman's career, the physical, symbolic, and emotional trauma as a result of being Batman, poetically positioning him to oppose Bane. You can argue that The Dark Knight is the best in the trilogy. You can argue that Batman Begins or The Dark Knight Rises are the best, but the truth is that each entry to the series is perfect in its own right. They're perfect in telling their respective stories and introducing us, the audience, to the varying aspects of Batman. Batman Begins is the perfect origin for Batman because it sets him down the path of controlling fear. The Dark Knight is the perfect sequel because it explores the chaotic and tragic toll of his career. The Dark Knight Rises is the perfect end because it follows the journey of how that man who initially fell down that hole, that life of misery, self-destruction and pity, all in a quest for revenge. The Dark Knight Rises sees that man finally escape that pit. It sees that man finally see the wisdom in not conquering fear, but welcoming it. Embracing it, allowing it to strengthen that man and accept the toll. The journey Bruce takes throughout the films show him that he's a man, not an island. This revenge quest is destructive to him and those around him. In The Dark Knight Rises, Bruce doesn't fear death. He welcomes failure because he has nothing left. Bruce left his life as Batman, but never moved on. He was waiting for the next thing to go bad, but 8 years passed and he never got out of that pit. And to escape that pit, Bruce must revisit the fear that conditioned him all his life and instead embrace it. Bruce must be faced with the beginning of his journey so he can be reborn to face the end of it from this Lazarus pit. It's in this moment when he finally realizes his journey. Everything he's been building up to since he was a kid was to conquer that fear that made him weak. He wanted to control it and weaponize it. However, now he knows that death isn't, or rather shouldn't be part of his journey if it meant pity and failure. Death is something impactful. It means seeing that evil triumph. It's something to be feared. Bruce once again finds that fear and embraces it. He makes that jump, that leap of faith into fear, into the unknown, knowing that his death would surely await him should he fail. but it's that strength, that persistence that he can't afford to fail that finally allows him to break free of the tragic bonds that made him Batman, the symbol of fear, and helped him escape that pit. He was now Batman, the symbol of hope, and now his death meant something. He wasn't a criminal or a vigilante, he was made a martyr. So what can we learn from this entire trilogy? Bruce faced off with his own fear, chaos and pain, and at the heart of it all trauma, and he came out on top. All because he had the choice to be better. To accept the two halves of his life that were at constant conflict and know that they didn't have to isolate him on two fronts. So now let's look at the very unique Batman Forever. This film asks the question, who is Batman? Both literally and figuratively, but it's deeper than that. It's not asking who the man behind the mask is, nor is it necessarily asking what the persona of Batman means. Instead, it's deconstructing the psychology of the Batman. And it does this using every main character in the film, so let's start with Robin. Like Bruce, Dick Grayson witnesses his family being murdered firsthand. Dick endures the same trauma that conditioned Bruce to make that candlelight pledge and vow revenge on the scum of Gotham. Bruce, however, made the choice to value the memory of his parents from the trauma of a child. He made the vow to make sure that no one would ever go through what he did. But Dick is forced into a blind hatred toward Two-Face. Two-Face, of course, being the product of Batman's very existence. This movie proves that Batman is a self-sustaining answer to crime. He stops it, but at the cost of gaslighting it, and this is the perfect setup for Robin in this context, as it gives him a reason to target the bad guy while following a dark path. This is developed more so in the deleted scenes when Bruce tells Dick, "I don't know you, but I'm like you," and Dick simply dismisses him and says, "Two-Face is my future," creating a parallel between how Batman initially began with revenge in mind and through a journey of self-discovery allowed him to control his emotions. This seemingly destructive attitude sets the stage for his spiral of revenge beautifully and positions him to learn what it means to forgive and channel anger productively. Dick can't even value himself because he couldn't save his family. Alfred ensures him that for no matter what circumstances may have occurred,
broken wings mend in time. One day Robin will fly again.
One day Robin will fly again. One day he will make that choice to honor his family's legacy on the forefront of fighting the people who took them from him alongside Batman in the name of justice. Dick Grayson's whole motif in this story is being a vulnerable adolescent manipulated by his desire for revenge, just as Bruce was. His ultimate choice that he wouldn't kill Two-Face reflects Bruce's guidance and shows that Bruce's nature of justice finally resonates with him. He's made that choice to not be consumed by his own rage, but to channel it into ensuring that no one else had to have that bad day. And of course, if we're gonna talk about a psychologically challenging Batman film, then we gotta talk about the crazed narcissist himself, the Riddler. Edward Nygma is somewhat of a stalker to Bruce Wayne. He's obsessed with his mind and idolizes him to the point of eventually wanting to best him. There's a book called Batman and Psychology in which it briefly covers this version of Riddler, quote, categorizing people in positive and negative extremes, switching abruptly between idolizing and demonizing the same individual as indicated by his vacillating views toward Bruce Wayne. And what really sends this home is how he is genuinely disgusted and deplored by Bruce Wayne's initiative to reject his proposal on the threat that it poses to innocence.
You were supposed to understand. I'll make you understand.
This obsession is further reflected in how he's intrigued by the greatest riddle of all.
Who is Batman?
Riddler doesn't have a genuine motive to destroy Batman until he uncovers his secret identity as Bruce Wayne. The two idols he's come to demonize, one for spite, the other for intrigue, have culminated to be one in the same. Through his efforts to destroy Batman and Bruce Wayne, he manages to inadvertently unite Batman and Robin. His entire motivation serves as a double meaning because although he claims that he wants to be the smartest, cleverest in Gotham, he just wants to be better than Bruce Wayne. And by the end of the film, he's clearly developed a god complex and believes that he has truly bested the two great influences in his life, Bruce Wayne and Batman, and even to the extent of mocking him.
Riddle me this, riddle me that. Who's afraid of the big black